Hello, hello. It's webinar time. All right. Um, Welcome everyone. As you guys are joining in, I'm watching you all pop into the room. I know it's a busy time of year for many people, and it is for my team as well. So I'm actually going solo today, which will be fun. And I think one of my team members might join a little later on, help with the Q&A, but this is a workshop. So our plan today was to work through some of the questions you guys have had and actually kind of build out and do some actual work on Webform. And if you'd like to follow along and log into your website and try and kind of go along with some of it, you're welcome to do that, or you can just watch because we're always recording these. So let me go ahead and I'm not going to spend a lot on the slideshow because we are going to jump right into it because there's a lot today. Chrissy got called away on a family emergency, so if any of you are, she's your account manager, give her some grace this week. There's a lot going on. So here's our agenda. We're going to do our Know Your Audience or Know Our Audience. Did you know? I'm going to go over some of the basics because definitely one of the things when we sent out our invite for the webinar today, we said, tell us what you want to know. And there were a number of people who said, I've never really done the web forms and I just need to know how to do them. So we will cover some of the basics. Big request was, how do I style it? How do I make it look better? How do I make all the fields look the same? How do I lay it out prettier? Definitely going to touch on that. I had a lot of requests about reports and then we'll wrap it up. But I took that entire list that of all the comments everyone had. And so we're not going to do a poll this week because we kind of pre-did the poll before it started. We've got this, these are the things that you guys came back to me with, like the basics, the formatting, how do I do conditionals, a pre-qualifier, like they can't fill out the form at all until they say yes to certain things or they're kicked out, that kind of stuff. How to do some custom auto replies. We'll talk about reports, how to access reports, how to give special privilege to people to reach reports. A lot were interested in events. A lot of United Way is interested in pledge cards, and then the whole payment process. So we'll do as much of this as we can. I do take this opportunity, though, to remind you that this is a Zoom webinar, which means it's not a chat. There's a Q&A box and you should be able to type your questions. You are able to type your questions in that Q&A box. Everyone should open that up. Make sure you have that handy so you can type questions as you have them. I have it on my screen. I will watch for the questions coming in and try and answer them in real time for you all, because we do want this to be like an acting workshop. And again, if you'd like to go ahead and open your computer and follow along, I'll try and not go too fast, but I do have a lot to cover. Here's my did you knows for this month. Did you know that the auto replies can be customized? You can actually do like dear first name. And one of you had said, I really want my auto reply to say this is tax deductible and put your number on it and all that. So we'll talk about auto replies. Archiving old forms, definitely going to touch on this. Recently, every time I meet with someone, you guys have so many web forms now, and you're getting more and more and more web forms. It's like, which form is it? There's so many of them. So I'm going to show you how to kind of clean that up a little bit so that they're not gone. They're just kind of moved into another folder and you can access them should you need to. Definitely going to go with conditionals, but most people think of conditionals as being a part of the form itself. Like if they say yes, this opens. If they say no, this opens. But another form of conditional is if they say they're from the department town center, then this person gets an email. So the auto replies can be conditional too, based on an answer to a single question. So that can be handy with things like you're like, I need so-and-so to get this information, so-and-so to get this information. That we can do with the conditionals. And then hopefully, you know, if you've used our web forms, that there is a way to set it up to generate a PDF of each submission. And I know with a lot of the agency applications, people do a lot of any kind of application, volunteer forms, waivers especially, or event registrations or pledge cards. You want that like singular PDF document. So there is an option to set those up with your forms. So that's going to be some of the stuff we'll touch on along with everything else. But I want to make sure everyone knows those things. All right, we're going straight into working on these forms, and got a lot to cover. So I am going to point out that there are two styles that we can look at. I'm going to be using our Drupal 10 demo site, which is this Javelina demo. I will make a comment that many of you are on Drupal 9 and have the older form layout that you use field sets with boxes, whereas the newer forms will not have that box look. So it is considered a more modern look. I know some people who have switched from one to the other are like, oh, I like the boxes. But honestly, without the box setup, it's kind of a modern style, but it is your personal preferences to how that lays out. So let's start with, where are the web forms? When you're logged into your website, and just in case you're not seeing this bar right here, just a reminder to everyone, you might need to click this menu, manage hamburger menu bar. And web forms are located under structure web forms. That's where they always live. Now, web forms are unique in the fact that they're a component and they can be added to any page. So you can put a web form on an existing page. And in fact, a lot of times that's what you do. You might have an event and you have all the information about the event on top and then the forms underneath it. So when you do come to web forms, as I mentioned, a lot of you are getting lots and lots and lots and lots of web forms. If you have an older form, I'll take this test one, for example, and you're trying to clean this up, I do want you to be aware that you can archive them. And I think that is very helpful to kind of make sure, like maybe you don't want to get rid of it, but if your list is huge and you have a lot of forms that say like 2019, 2022, then maybe you want to archive it, and you can always access those, but it cleans up this master list to make it easier to find what you are looking for. So I do think that that's a really good tip. You can also add categories to them and all sorts of different things to organize your forms. As a general rule of thumb, we usually say, try and avoid putting years on forms. Try and see if you can reuse a form year after year instead of necessarily doing a separate one for the next year. There's certain reasons why you might do it, but in most cases, you probably can keep with the same form, and then you have all that history together for years and years to come. All right, we are going to create a new form today. And based on all of the questions and all of the things people wanted to know, I am going to do a form about applying for assistance. Yes, so where do you find those archive forms once you archive them? Thanks, Tina. I'm just answering this live. Once you archive them, they're going to be in this drop down right here, and you will see the inactive archive forms. If I filter for it, I'll see that one test one. So it just moves them off the big list. I think this can be really handy for those of you who have lots of forms. Okay, great question. Thank you. So let's go ahead and add a form. So how can I add a form? There's a lot of ways to do these kind of things, but I'm just going to use the add form right on my web forms page. When I add a web form, I can give it a title, and this one's going to be apply for assistance. This little description is really just for you. If you're like, oh, this is for whatever, because you have several of them, you might, it's a disaster relief, it's a this. That's just notes to you if you want to make notes. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And when I do, it brings me into the screen here. And now I can start building it. Okay, so you build it a piece at a time, and you build it by adding elements. There are lots of elements. I'm not going to go through every element in a web form, but I'm going to take you through some of the most common ones. So when I start most all of my web forms and I add an element, I'm big on it being pretty. I like it to lay out nice. So when you click select an element, this is what it typically looks like. I do want to let you know, if you click show preview, it'll give you a preview of what these fields would look like if you were to choose them. So you can kind of scroll down maybe and look for what you're looking for, or you can search for the item you want. So I know what I want right now is a header area called a field set, just because that's what I like. These are some of our markups for notes. Where's my field set at? See, I always search for it. It is somewhere down here. Containers. It's called a container. So there are different containers like that can house the stuff. I like the field set one as far as how it kind of puts everything together. And what a container does is it allows you to be able to do an entire conditional about a question or something. Okay. So let me add a field set. And I'm going to title it application. Okay, so that's just kind of the name at the top. It's usually a bigger letters. That's typically what a field set is. And I'm going to do save, or I can do save and add element. But for right now, I'm just going to do a save. Anytime you add a container or a field set, it gives you its own add element, which it means that if I add something, it's going to be within that particular section or that particular area, versus if I add element here, it would come to the very bottom of the form. So there are differences with how you add things. Let's go ahead and add under application. We're going to just do first name and last name. And again, I like to do layout stuff. So what I would recommend is that you start with something called a flex box, and it was down in that container area. But since I know the name of it, I'm going to type it for speed use. So a flex layout allows you to put fields side by side. And if you label a flex with a code of 1, it's smaller, and a code of 2, it's larger, which is also kind of a cool trick. If you don't do anything to them, they're the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and add a flex layout. And all it is it's just a function. So I don't do anything with it. So I'm going to save this. And it's indented under application, and I got another add element. And what that means is whatever I add under Flexbox is going to be side by side. So let's go ahead and add an element and do first name, which is a text field. You will notice as you start adding fields to your form that they are given a key. The key is an important feature, like if you're going to customize the auto reply and say, dear first name, you will actually end up using the key to help customize some of your auto replies if you want. I am just going to go down to the bottom. Now I can do required, but I'm going to skip that for now. I'm going to go ahead and say save and add element. When I do that, it's still adding under that same flex box. So you'll see me do another text field, and this time I am going to choose last name. And let's save. All right, let's go ahead and view what we've got so far. So far what we have is we have an application with first name, last name. Now, just to show you, since I'm doing a field set right now, let me show you what it would look like if I'm going to add email, and I'm going to make the email field a little bit bigger side by side. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do a build, and you always want email in forms. Why do you want email? Because you can't do an auto reply to them unless there's an email. So I'm still going to stay under the same flex box. I'm going to add another element, and I'm going to select email. And I know I can search for that. Now there's this one that lets them confirm it and do to. You can use that. I don't use it often. I typically just use the regular email field, but it has to be email field. If you're wanting to get someone's email address, don't use a text field. You want to use the one actually called email, because that's the one that the system will know they can send an email to. So I'm going to add this element as email. And since, and I can call it email address, I can call it personal email, I could call it work email. So you can title it whatever you want. As I come down, here's that Flexbox item. If I make this 2, it's going to be a little bit larger than the other 2 that are there. So that's one way that you can have some side-by-side things that maybe have different sizes. And again, this is about formatting. So that's a question that comes up often. So first and last name, and then email is larger. That's because it was a 2 and the other ones were left as 1s. Okay. All right. Next, typically you'll ask for an address. So how are you going to do the address? I could do another field set and well, I can do street address and then do a field set and do city, state, and zip. But this system comes with a lot of composite fields. They even come with composite fields for name. I decided to lay it out this way so that I could use it for my auto replies. But when I come back to build, whenever you're building a website, you're on the word build. When I come back to build, next I want to do the address. Well, where's the address going? So think about these little indents here. I want it going under the field set of application, not under the Flexbox. I don't want it on, I don't want to keep that row going. It's done. So I'm going to add element here. And I'm looking for one of my composite fields, and there's several of them. So I will scroll down and show you some of those. Here's your basic address. That's the one we're going to use. But then they also have one that's a contact with name and email and address. That's used a lot. They do have one that's just the name with different titles. So there are options here where you don't even have to do the work. It's already done for you. So I'm going to go ahead and save myself time on entering all these fields. And I'm going to take this basic address and add it as an element. We'll call it address. Now you could call it home address or whatever you want to call it. That's up to you. So here would be the first line, which would be like your street address. So whatever you call it here, it's going to show. So I can rename that. Address 2, I'm actually not going to include that. I can, but I'm not going to. The system does say city or town. I like to change it to city because that's usually the terminology here as opposed to Canada maybe. And I'll do state. Now, when I do state, the default is that it's going to be this drop down select. Or if you want to, you can just change it to a text field. You also can enter a placeholder if you know, hey, it's I'm in Arizona, so I'm going to go ahead and enter that because there shouldn't be anyone else applying who's not in, say, Arizona. So you can put placeholder text there. That is still changeable by them, should you let them, or should they want to, I should say. So then we got zip code, and I'm not going to do country. Now, what makes this pretty? That Flexbox. Keeping with that theme, Flexboxes allow things to be side by side. And the way to turn it on is to say yes. So I always say yes to my Flexboxes because I don't want this really long list of fields. I think it looks prettier and it's more organized if things like city, state, and zip are next to each other. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and I am going to save. All right, so let's take a look at that. Application, first, last email, address, city, state, zip. And you'll notice the title didn't show as far as what kind of address. And that's because by default, that one is hidden. I'm not sure why, but I will show you if you wanted that title, which is just address, but it could be street address or whatever. There are a lot of properties in here, and currently it's invisible. That's the default. So we can put it before if we wanted it to show, but I'll leave it. I'm fine with it not showing because I don't need to tell them it's an address field. It's an address field. It's kind of obvious, right? Okay, so now I want to show you some of the different field options you have. I'm going to show you the difference between like checkboxes and radios, and do I use an other or don't I use an other? One of the things I'll see a lot of times with forms is someone does a form and then they have a separate question that says, if you said no, answer this. Well, we can make that all happen with conditionals. We can have an other field. There's a lot we can do to organize that. So since this is an assistance form, I'm going to ask them what type of assistance do they want. And in my case, I'm going to let them pick more than one. So based on that knowledge that I'm going to let them pick more than one field, I'm going to use checkboxes. Checkboxes, which are squares, let them pick multiples. Radios, which are circles, and I don't know why they're called radios, but they are, which are circles, they can only pick one. A select, which is the drop down, they can only pick one. So adding a field here to the application, I get to choose what type I want. And this is a singular checkbox. So I'm going to, oh, not type well. Oh, I've got my finger on the wrong key. Check boxes. So when I do that, it brings me down to my option elements. And you'll see here, and it lets you kind of test it out and go, oh yeah, this is the right one because I can check more than one. And then there's even an other if I need it. So do I need other or do I not need other? In this case, I'm going to go ahead and let them have an other if they'd like. So I'm going to pull this and say add element. And this is going to be type. Oh, my fingers are absolutely on the wrong keys. Type of assistance. Okay. So then I'm giving them options of rent, utilities, food, and then we're going to leave it the other down here. And you can use a title, you can put placeholder text in. I tend to take the placeholder text out, but others what's going to appear in the list. But when it pops up, I want to tell them what? Explain other. And it's a text field. So those are the fields. Let's go ahead and save this, and I'm going to show you some things that are common about these type of fields. So when I go to view this, one of the things that you're going to notice, and this was one of the questions that came up, they're like styling it. Well, this is now big text, which is the kind of text we have for a field set, which is for a major header. Well, maybe I don't want it. And if you have the Drupal 9, it'll have that box around it. You'll be like, I don't want a box around this. I only want it around the whole thing. So how do I get rid of this? And how do I make these side by side instead of this long list? I don't want my page going long. All right, let's go fix this one. So I'm going to go to build. I'm going to click edit. First, I'm going to decide how I want it laid out. Right now, the default's one column. For this, I personally like the side by side. I'll do 2 or 3 columns if there's a lot of them. But I'm going to go side by side because they certainly can list side by side for these. And how do I get that header to change? Now that's an advanced setting. So I'm going to go ahead and click advanced. And I'm going to change it from this field set to form element. Form element will make it look like all the other default fields in the system. Also, FYI, if you ever want to set a default setting, just like we set the default state, you could set a default answer to it. I know a lot of people with like pledge cards are doing a default is to the greatest need. So those are things you can preset under advanced. I'm going to click save. And we're going to view it. So now this has that same look as like city, and I have rent, utilities, food, other. Other says explain other. That's how that works. All right, so now lots of questions about conditionals. So this clearly is going to set me up for conditionals. If they select rent, what do I need to know? And I'm not going to do tons and tons of answers and questions. I have to pay attention to my time as well. I am going to show you a number field. So we're going to ask how much do you need for rent and for utilities. Let's do it for both. So build, I'm still under my basic application here. So I'm going to add an element and it is a number field. And why wouldn't I just use a text field like how much do you need? Well, because then it forces them to do a number. And our system does do math. I'm not going to get into computed twigs, way too advanced. But if you ever have a need for it to multiply this times number of months or whatever, we can do that. And our team can help you with that. We build a math formula, make it happen. So our question is for rent and utilities. How much? Question mark. We'll just leave it at that. How much? How much do they need? It's a number. So I'm going to set a prefix. I'm going to give it a dollar sign. And one of the things you can do is do minimum and maximums. I like to, if I want it to be a positive number, I like to put a 1 in here as a minimum. I don't know what it is, but folks like to put dashes in front of their numbers, and that becomes a negative number. So you can set minimums and maximums, and if you want to avoid negative numbers, I highly recommend you do a 1. Sometimes folks will see this limited number of values, and it gets confusing because there's lots of options. You almost never change that field. That would be if you wanted how much to repeat again, and how much to repeat again, and how much to repeat again. We just need it asked one time in this case. And we are going to do a conditional. And this is how conditionals work. So you do it on the question itself. The conditional means this question is going to appear if something happens. So what makes the question how much appear? The question how much will appear if it's visible, and almost always you're going to go visible route. That's the best way to do it. If visible, if all or any. If it's one thing, you say all. If it's multiple things, you say any. Now, in this case, having both rent and utilities together might not make a lot of sense. I'm just doing it for sake of show. If any of the following, type of assistance, value is, let's see, text field. Oh, I did the other. I'm sorry. If rent checkbox is checked, right? Or if utilities checkbox is checked. Okay, so based on those two options, this field will appear. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And when I go to view this form, it's not there. Question's not there. What makes that question appear? Well, if I say rent, it appears. If I say utilities, it appears. Again, you have different fields for both of those, but that's just a sample. Let's just say if they say food, I want to ask them, what kind of food do you need? What do you need for food? So let's do a text area. It's a larger field. So I'm going to go back to build. And again, I'm in the application, so I'm going to do an add element. And I will add text area. And it's like, explain. We're going to get more details about the food. Let's make that conditional again. That is going to be visible if all of the following, if food is checked. Okay. So it can also be things like if value is 2, if this is there. Okay. There we go. I will hit save. So in this case, I have it set that if they do food, they're going to explain. Now, let me say I look at this and I go, oh, I don't want this box this big. That's the default setting. It's 4 rows. Maybe you only want it to be 2 rows, or maybe you want to limit them to 100 characters. Let's go ahead and do that. So I can go to my build, edit this field, and for our text areas, we can say, I only want it to be 2 rows. And for our counter, which is under form validation, this may or may not be open. Our counter, we're going to go, you can do words or characters. I'm going to do 100 words. Those are just samples of what you can do. Now, I see a question about, where do you ask, like, how many people in the house and kids and stuff? Yeah, that all can be asked. And we'll talk about a bunch of other forms in a minute. Hopefully you all got on your invite this crazy list of forms that I sent you. I meant to mention that at the beginning. I thought it might be helpful before the webinar to give you samples of a lot of forms that we have done. And if you want one of those forms cloned to your website, it's free. You can submit a support ticket and our team will take care of them. So if you've looked through those forms, and I'm pretty sure there is a form out there for like the detailed assistance, like I have another kid and I have another kid and they're this size and they're this size. There's a bunch of those. We have them for Toys for Tots, we have them for assistants, we have them for all sorts of things. So make sure you're looking through that form list and you can ask questions on that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and view this. So now for food, it's shorter, explain in 100 words remaining. So I just want you to know that some of that stuff can be adjusted. So it comes in as 4 and if you want to adjust it, you can. All right. Let's see, what's my next question? All right, now, this was a good question that came in. Someone's like, what if I need to limit how many people pick up things? We call this an option limit. So let's just say we're gonna set up appointments for folks and we got an appointment at 1 or 2, at 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But I can only take 3 people at this time and 4 people at this time, that sort of thing. Let's do that next. So again, I'm going back to build. I'll explain the form list in a bit. And again, it's under application. I'm going to do add. And we are going this time, they can only pick 1 time. They can't pick multiple times, and I don't have an other. So that's called a radio. So I'm going to go to this radios right here, and I'm going to add the element. And I'm going to say select time. Now, for sake of typing, that's 1 o'clock, that's 2 o'clock, that's 3 o'clock. Let me add 3 more. I want to do some layout. That's 4 o'clock, that's 5 o'clock, and that's 6 o'clock. So I have 6 of them. So let's go ahead and style this to be 3 columns. Nice layout, right? So I'll hit save. We'll take a look at it. This is going to be a recurring occurrence. You're going to come out to anything that's checkboxes and anything that's radios, and it's going to have this giant title, or it's going to have a box around it. It makes it a field set. I am not a fan of these keep looking different. I think the only time that it should be large is when I purposefully have it for an entire section. That's my opinion. So I'm going to get this changed again. So I want you to see one more time how we do that. And I know a number of you have learned this trick. So when I go back to build and I go to select time and I edit it, it's under that advanced. Let's get there. There we go. Under advanced, I'm changing it from field set to form element. So there's some terminology. Field set means it's like this title. Form element means it looks like the other fields in the form, and that's just a nicer styling. So Just to jump for a second and show you how to set these fields now, this is the cool part, so that we can do how many people at 1, how many people at 2, all of that. How do I do that? Now, that's a special feature on a form, and it's called an option limit handler. It is located in the settings part of the form. So this is an advanced feature, but I had several people ask about it. So under settings, you have lots of options, but we're going to go to the emails and handlers because this is called a handler. When you click add handler, and you may or may not have this, it doesn't come a default, it comes because someone asks us to add it. It's this one right here. It's called options checkbox limit. That's what it's called. If you don't see that, then you might want to put in a ticket and ask for it. Let me show you where I'm at again. I'm under settings. I'm under email and handlers. And I click add handler. Do you see options checkbox limit? If you don't, that's the name of it. Please add options checkbox limit to my web forms, and you can put a ticket in for that. But let me go ahead and use it. So now when I add this handler, it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do? What I want to do is I want to go to my select times, and I want to limit these. I can only take 3 people at 1, 2 people at 2, 4 people at this time, 2 people here, 3 people here, and 4 people here. Or I can set them all to the same. And I'll hit save. That's it. So you create it for the question. It's a special feature under email and handlers called checkbox limit handler. Now, when I come back to view my form, here they are. So what that means is every time the form is submitted, the time drops off. That option isn't available, and it'll say 2, and it'll say 1, and then it'll say none available. So that's a way for you to control anything that you have limits on. Like you can't take more than so many people. All right. So next I'm going to go ahead, we're going to call this good on the form because I want to get to some other stuff. And if you have questions, please type them in. But I want to show you how you generate a PDF of the form, and then we'll get on to doing like the auto replies. We'll do the pre-qualifier too, and then the reports. So let's make this form so it can generate a PDF. I am going to go back to build, and you will, and this time I'm just going to the top because it's not really a part of the form, it's an element. So I'm going to add element, and I'm going to search for PDF because I know that's what it's called. It's called an attachment PDF. What that means is it's going to create a PDF of their submission. So I'm going to add this, and I'm going to call it PDF. Now, that means that it'll just be called PDF, and all of them will be called PDF. This is more advanced, and our team can help you with it. I've already got it pre-configured in my system, but if you want to name each form, you can have it pre-named so that it would be last underscore name, which would be James application, and they'll be named differently for each submission. So I want you to know that that's possible. I don't necessarily need you to know how to code it. I just need you to know that each submission form PDF can have its own unique name, and reach out to your account manager will help you with that, or support can help you with that. So let me go ahead and hit save. And it's not something you're going to see. We're going to see it when we do some auto replies and we send some emails. Okay. Let's do that pre-qualifier though. So let's just say, for example, that they're not allowed to apply unless they say yes or no to something. Sometimes it's like, do you live in this county or do you live in this state? Let's go with that. Do you live in Arizona? If they say no, we're going to say, sorry, you don't qualify. If they say yes, then this application is going to show. So how would I do that? That was a great question that someone asked me to solve. So this is cool. So I'm going to come to build, and I need to put my pre-qualifier. Should have done it first, but we're working backwards. So I'm going to add this element, and we're going to say it's a radio because it's a yes or no. So I'm going to do a radio. Oh, no, it's not. It's a state. No, it is a yes or no. Do you live in Arizona? That's right. I forgot what my question is. Do you live in Arizona? So my question is a yes or no. So cool thing to know about these, just like there's pre-done addresses and pre-done name fields and composite fields, there's a lot of pre-done stuff. Like you don't even have to figure this one out. There's already a yes or no. So I'm just going to choose the default yes or no that's here. And again, I really prefer them to be side by side. And I am going to make sure it's not a field set and it's a form element. And I am going to click save. So it automatically put it to the bottom. I actually want this to be the first question. So these crosshairs can be moved around. And I'm going to have it above the entire application altogether. So I'll say save. So now I need to have two things happen. I need to have, if they say no, it says, sorry, you're not qualified. If they say yes, I want this application to show. How do I do that? Let's start with the yes, because that's easy. So the application right here, I'm going to edit it. And I am going to do a conditional that says, this is visible if, do you live in Arizona? The value is yes. So what's great about what we're doing here is that if you notice, because this is a field set, everything under it is inside here. So I don't need to do it for every question. I just need to do it for the entire field set. So I'm going to say save element. Let's view it. So that's all that's there. And I'm actually going to condition the submit button too. I don't want anything showing. Like literally, they can't do this unless they are pre-qualified. So there's a lot of things that I've seen where people are like, I need to pre-qualify them. I don't want them randomly filling out these forms unless they pre-qualify. Now that, you know, they might figure out the right things to say, but we're going to do this with the submit button too. We actually can condition that as well. This is visible if, do you live in Arizona? Value is yes. Save. So now let's go view this. That's it. That's all there is. So that's the start to the form. So if they say yes, they get the form, they get the submit button. What if they say no? Let's add a field for no. Because what I want it to do when they say no is I want it to have text that says you're not qualified. That is called an HTML box. So it's like a rich text editor, which you might be familiar in your website. So when I add this element, and again, because I know what it's called, I'm going to go ahead and find my HTML. And there's two, there's the basic and there's the advanced. Always use advanced. Advanced will let you put in hyperlinks, it'll let you put in pictures, it'll let you style, it'll let you make it big, it'll let you do stuff with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and add an advanced HTML, which is just a rich text editor. This title means nothing, it's just what's called. Sorry, you do not qualify. So I might take that, I might use our headings that we have out here. Oops, I did not need to delete that. Sorry, you do not qualify. And again, I was going to use this heading 2. We'll make it red. It'll be obnoxious. Okay, so when does this message appear? This is a conditional message. This message appears. It's visible if, do you live in Arizona is what? The value is no. Save. And it really just fell at the bottom, which honestly is fine. And it didn't even need to be above the PDF. I just did that. So let's view this. All right. Do you live in Arizona? No. Sorry, you do not qualify. Yes. There you go. There's the form. Okay. So that's a pre-qualifying question, was one of the questions that I was asked to address during this. All right, we're going to get on to some of the settings now that this form is built. So once the form is built, you typically will move over into your settings area to work on some things. Now, one of the things that I might consider doing is I might consider having a very easy URL straight to this form. A lot of times forms are put on pages though, so you might not need to do this, but I'm actually going to want you guys to access assistance. That's what I was going to do. See my brain. Assist. I'm actually going to want you guys to fill some of these out in a minute so that we can, once it's done, so that we can have some data so then I can do the report side of it. So we'll have some fun with this in just a second. So this was under settings. I went ahead under the general settings and I set this URL for what it's going to. Do not mess with the confirmation URL that usually sends you in circles. So, but this means that when I save this, this page, this web form, is now whatever website address it is /assist. So it's just like setting up your own custom URL for your form. You can do that. So when I go to settings, I did that under general. Under form, I have the option to open, close it, schedule it if I need to. So you can do that. I'm not going to mess with submissions, but under confirmation, you should always do your confirmation page. Most of the time, you're just doing the general confirmation page, which is something like, thank you, form received. And that's the screen that shows up when they're done with the form. You can design this out however you want. So I'm going to hit save. So that's your confirmation screen. And then we're going to go on to email and handlers. Now we did a handler, but what about emails? Who's going to get this form? Who should get it? Well, the first person I think who should get something is the person who filled out the form. So what do I want them to get? So let's add an email. And I like to label who's getting what. So I typically will say email to submitter. By default, our system is just going to send, oh, wait, let's give their email first. Send to. Our system is set up to send it back to the website. Well, I need to send it to this person. So before you do anything, if you're sending it to the submitter, you have to select their email address. That's why it's important that you use the email address when you're doing the form. So you're going to select their email address and you can copy it to someone else or whatever, but usually I keep theirs as their own email. It's coming from who? It's coming from the website. This is important. In order for an email to send from your website, it must come from a domain that matches your website. Do not have this send from something Gmail. It's got to match the domain of your website or the email will never send. It will fail. So it should be like Allyson at oneeach.com from the One Each site, or office at, just so long as the ending matches your website. The message here is going to be already set up for you as automatically being a web form submission from apply for assistance. So that's some code for the name of it. And the default is going to be so-and-so submitted this on this date. And anybody who submits a form is anonymous unless they're logged in, which your people aren't going to be. So I usually like to customize this a little bit. So there's a couple options you can do when you customize it. You can copy this and go ahead and do a custom body. And sometimes you have to save that and then come back to it. Let me show you here. So edit. The custom body is right here. Oh, they give it to me anyway. So this portion at the bottom are all the fields of the form. So if you want to just say thank you for your submission, and then all the fields are below, you can. You can also use this to identify who's getting it. So I know that it's first underscore name. That's the field. So I can do to first name, comma, thank you for your form, your submission. And then if I want all the fields below, I can add them below there as well. So this shows you underneath here what all of the keys are. The keys, how you customize it. So if you really want to customize this out, like I said, you can say, you requested this amount of money, your appointment time is at this time. So you can fill in the holes and you can write it by using different submission field names. That's something we certainly can help you with. So just reach out if you want some help with that. I'm going to save this. I'm noticing I am running into time. I haven't had a lot of questions. I hope everyone is hanging in there with me. And then the next email that you will typically do would be like to yourself. So we're going to skip that though. Okay. Once you have submissions, and let's see, I am going to grab a question that's out here. And I'm going to give you guys this email. See who's paying attention. Hopefully you guys are. Let's see. I'm going to type an answer. I am answering Marina's question. I just put a link to this form. And if you're able to, go ahead and click that link from the question and answer and fill out the form a few times. That'll help me get some data. You're not going to get an auto reply email because this is the demo site and it's not going to send emails, but you will help me build some results. So hopefully some of you are out there going ahead and filling in the form. Okay, let's see if I'm getting any in. It's going to take you guys a second, because then what I want to do is I want to go through some of the results area and talk about how to pull the data and pull the reports and what to look for. Let's see here. Anyone? You guys are great. Look at that. Some of you guys are coming in. We get to see who's doing it. A few of you are using tests. Some of you using your own names. So thank you for taking a moment to fill out the results. So let's just say I had this form out there for a while. I am going to just go back to my homepage and be like, oh, I wonder how my form's doing. Maybe I got emails of it and maybe I just need to go look. How do I check on the form results data? Go to structure, go to Webforms, find the form. So apply for assistance. Wow, I got 20 in. You guys are awesome. So when I go ahead and click that 20, where did we go? My screen's moved on me. Hit the cord. That was not a good one, Allison. All right, so when I go ahead and click 20, I will have all these results that come in. So you just have to click that number. I will tell you that in this area, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. You can rearrange the way the screen looks by clicking customize and going ahead and moving these things around, putting them in a certain order, hiding fields that you don't want. So that is something that you can do with how the screen itself lays out for you. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't care about some of these fields. I don't care what their IP address is. These are all going to be anonymous. I want their name sooner, or I want something else sooner. You can do that. As you scroll to the right, the PDFs, these are cool because they're pre-named. So I'm going to go ahead and click one of them. And then these are the actual PDFs. So we could attach that to the auto response they get. They could get a copy of the PDF actually attached to the email itself. There's a lot we can do with how that lays out. So let's say we need to pull the report though. How do I do that? So I'm on this results page. I can go ahead and download reports here. This is by clicking the word download. When I come here to pull a report, I have a lot of options. But typically I just want the data, but I do have the ability to pick which columns do I want. So I might uncheck them all, and I might just check the ones I want. So you can pick that I want it to go, I need these fields. I need these fields in my report. They're the only ones I care about, were the ones that folks filled out. And thanks, Nicole jumped in from my team. So if you guys have questions, really good time to type some questions in there because she's on it. So you can pick whichever fields you want in your report, and then you can come down and you could just save these settings, you could download it. But if you are doing a form that you're using year after year, and there's a lot of you who do this, I do want to make sure you know that you can go ahead and limit the data you're pulling by, say, the completed date. So when did they finish this form? Because if you're using a form that you've used previously, you might not want to pull data from the whole time frame. But the cool thing is then you do have the data from the whole time frame. So that's an option for you if you are, wanting to keep your historical data going. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. So then you click Save Settings if you like, and you can go ahead and click Download. When you download it, the default setting here is it's a CSV file, which you can open in your Excel, and then you're able to see it there. So, all right. I know that was a lot of stuff, and I didn't get through every question everyone had, but I am going to go ahead and answer that question, Ariana. I see a couple of you have asked the same question, so I'm going to pull this up. When you got your email to invite you to the webinar, it should have come to you about an hour before this webinar started. Your email should have looked like this. Dear so-and-so, this is a reminder that it'll begin in an hour. Did you guys see this? Is anyone who didn't see this? I went ahead and gave you that list of some of our free web forms that are out there. Whether you need an agency application, here's another assistance form. And some of these are more detailed, a lot more detailed than the one I just did, like how many people in the household, all of that kind of stuff. So you can click through all of these forms and see if any of them kind of maybe sort of meet your needs. And if they do, then we want you to go ahead, follow the instructions up here, put in a support ticket, and copy and paste which forms with their URLs that you're wanting cloned to your site, and our support team will help you with that. So I'm hoping that everyone has, in fact, seen that. It should have been the email that you got just before. And do look at these forms. And that the point is that one each can clone forms to other sites. So if any of our customers make a really cool form, I've had people before say, hey, I saw that this customer has this and they said I could have it. Great, we can pull a copy over to your site and there's no charge for that. We just need to know. Okay, and we try and keep a nice backup of a great selection of forms. Some of these reporting forms are really cool. Pledge cards, I know a lot of you are in pledge season right now. Event registration, payment processors. I didn't even hit the payment processor piece. It is a more advanced piece and not everyone's using it. So again, reach out to your account managers and we'll help you with the payment processor side. Let's see. Yes, I received it. Very helpful. Thank you. Yay. Thanks, Maureen. All right. I'm wrapping because we're out of time, folks. So let's see here. I really didn't have anything left on my slideshow other than our next webinar is in October. So here's the thing, like people were asking about the payment processors and stuff. We do have an option with our web forms to do a Stripe payment processor. We have other people who are looking at things like QGive, which is tied to Bloomerang, or they're looking for things that automatically download into their database program. So we have a special guest from Bloomerang who's going to be generically talking about online forms and money forms processing. But she will be sharing about QGive and Bloomerang and their platform as well. So if you've been kind of thinking about options and things to do, it's definitely going to be worth your time. She's awesome. I've met her. She's great. And then in November, we're going to be getting ready for end of year campaign, talking about all those pages, Giving Tuesday and end of year campaigning stuff. All right, so that brings me to the end. And looking to see, you guys didn't have a lot of questions, which was good because I was running solo and Nicole got here at the end, which I appreciate so much. All right, that's it for this week or this month. And reach out if you have questions. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.